The front office logbook. A very important part of your orientation to the front office is learning what the front office logbook is and what it is used for. The logbook records important events and decisions that were made during the previous work shifts. You will use your logbook every day, and it forms a very important part of your daily routine in the front office. In this lesson, we'll look at what is the front office logbook, logging information, and lastly, what information should be logged. We'll begin by learning what is the front office logbook. A logbook is a chronological journal that lists unusual events, guest complaints or requests, and any other relevant information from your daily operations. It should be kept in a central location within your office, as all staff members at your establishment will be expected to use your logbook, not just the front office. Before you start your shift, you will be expected to open the logbook to see what has happened since you last left the office. This helps you note any current activities and situations that require following up, and any potential problems that you could be faced with that day. It's best to read through the logbook before you have your daily meeting. Next, we'll look at logging information. So what gets written down in the logbook? Always remember that no amount of information is too much to get written down in the logbook, so don't hold back when you're writing in it during and at the end of your shift. There are certain guidelines that you need to follow when writing down your information in your logbook. These guidelines act as a template, and they are used so that all colleagues can read the logbook easily. Let's look at what the guidelines are. The guest name and room number must be recorded. The time of the guest complaint or request must be recorded. The actual complaint or request must be stated. Your name or initials must be put next to the comment written, so that a follow-up can happen if necessary. Any follow-up promises made to guests are to be written down. An example of a correct entry into the front office logbook would be as follows. Mrs. Rolfe from room 55 asked to have extra blankets put into her room at 10 o'clock. I said to her that we would make sure this happens whilst her room gets serviced, which was due to happen at 10:30. I will follow up with housekeeping that it has happened. GC. Let us learn what information should be logged. Now that you know how you are expected to log information, we will look at types of situations that you are expected to report and examples of each using the guidelines that you were taught. The types of situations to report are guest complaints, guest requests, compliments from guests, and lastly, logging non-guest information. First, we will look at guest complaints. An example of a guest complaint that you would report would be, Mr. Smith from room 22 complained about his toilet not flushing properly at 09:15. I said to him that I would get maintenance onto it straight away and let him know as soon as the issue had been resolved. Mr. Smith was heading out for the day, so maintenance could go into his room to fix their problem at any time. Steve from maintenance was contacted and he said he would go to the room at 10 o'clock. I will follow up with Steve personally to make sure the matter was attended to and leave a note in Mr. Smith's room to notify him that his toilet is flushing properly again. Then there is logging guest requests. An example of a guest request that you would log in your logbook is, Mr. Dold has requested a private table in the restaurant this evening, as he would like to propose to his girlfriend Emily. He asked me this at 1300. I have communicated this with the housekeeping department. The restaurant has been told too, and the best private table has been allocated to them. Mr. Dold also plans to come and give the ring to us so that we can store it in our safe until it comes time for us to give it to the restaurant. I told Mr. Dold that I would confirm everything with him when he came to give me the ring. Joshua Graydon. Now we will look at logging compliments from guests. An example of a compliment from a guest that you would log is, "On checkout this morning at 10 o'clock, Mr. and Mrs. Fleming said to tell all the staff that they had had the best holiday. They especially mentioned how incredible the housekeeping department was." I have passed on these messages of confidence to the housekeeping manager and to our front office manager. Our front office manager said she would send them an email to thank them for their positive feedback and invite them to contact her directly should they wish to return in the future. Joshua Graydon. Great! These example situations are filled with useful information to provide the best service to your guests. Now, lastly, we will look at logging non-guest information. When you use the logbook to communicate information other than about guests, you won't need to write down the time of when your message was written unless it is relevant. Always remember to write down as much information as possible so that anyone reading the logbook can make perfect sense of what you're saying. Here's an example. An example of communication coming from other departments is a note from your restaurant manager notifying you of a menu change that is due to happen the following evening. This would need to be written in your front office logbook, as it would be useful to see as soon as you started your shift. You would then know to not give a menu to a guest to look through who is only due to dine with you in 2 days' time. Imagine being the guest who is shown the current menu, getting excited about it, and then arriving for dinner 2 days later, only to find it was a different menu than what you were expecting. They would be very disappointed guests if this happened. You can now see how important and useful the front office logbook is. By being in the know of everything that has happened before your shift and during it, you'll be able to respond intelligently to a guest who wants an update on the complaint that they have made. You will be able to, at any given moment, answer the questions of your guests. Just another way in which you will be able to wow your guests.